this. I always tell people, are you a farmer or not?
Mm.
Farmers are aware of, what to plant, where to plant it, when to plant it, and when to harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you want to harvest that raise now, but it's the wrong time.
Mm.
The season is not right. The company is not in a good position. The sun is not shining, and it's raining like cats and dogs. And if you're in the middle of the storm asking for something, it's not going to happen. So save your bullets and wait until the right moment when the company's had a good financial period and you've achieved some new goals. Constantly be doing that through thick and thin. And that disciplined approach and loyalty really matters.
Welcome to the #1 podcast that teaches people how to get paid what they're worth. I'm your host and resident human behavior nerd, Amanda Lefevre. I'm super excited about today's guest, and you should be too. Kurt Kuyper is the president of WKS Krispy Kreme. Yes, I said Krispy Kreme, friends. This man is delivering extraordinary donut experiences and glazed tastiness to people all over Northern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, and Wisconsin. He's a longtime successful food industry executive. And I read that Kurt loves fishing, body surfing, snow skiing, and international geopolitical and economic strategy. What? Giving back is part of his DNA, and he currently serves as a board member for Hobie. Is it Hobie, Arizona? Is that right? Is that how you say
correct.
it?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a nonprofit youth leadership foundation. Kurt Kuyper, welcome to the show. I am so glad that you are here.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm delighted. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. And at first, I have to ask because I love donuts and I am definitely your target market. So how do donuts and like this love of geopolitical and economic strategy like mix? Real quick, can you just tell me like how do those loves overlap?
That's a great question. I don't even know how to answer that question. I think the people around the world love donuts, and everybody's got a sweet tooth no matter where you're from. Some are less so and some are more so, but it's been interesting how the simple, humble little donut that Krispy Kreme represents has allowed me to connect with people in different countries. And I've always been a student of international politics. That was a part of my undergraduate studies. And so I think that I just followed my passions, and I was lucky enough to find out what I didn't want to do in life. And I found Krispy Kreme and recognized the incredible, simple pleasure that it was, but also what it meant to people at an emotional level. It's been an extremely rewarding experience to be able to be part of it over the years.
Yeah. So what is your favorite donut?
I love a hot sour cream cake donut.
What?
They make them there's something about it. The regular glaze, our regular glaze, our original glazed donut is the hero of the show. Mm-hmm. And it's what has paid my salary for many, many years. But the hot sour cream, by the way, you can take it home, microwave it for 7 seconds, little vanilla ice cream,
nice
caramel sauce.
I have never heard of a hot sour cream. I didn't even know that existed.
It's kind of like a buttermilk donut,
but
ours has a unique flavor that I don't think you get anywhere else.
That sounds awesome. Okay, so I'll stop talking about donuts because I love them. But I do have to, I also want to ask, let's talk about, of course, getting a raise in the food and beverage industry. I had read an article in Restaurant Today that said, we expect to reward good workers with merit raises as appropriate, but your line employee expects a sort of longevity bonus simply for putting this time in. What would you say to people looking to have this once a year conversation about their hourly rate?
Sure. Well, I'd say you don't have to wait. I like to tell people at the end of the day, performance trumps tenure or any regularly scheduled meetings. So if you have the ability to sit down with anyone in your organization to learn about how do you grow your worth and value / career, do it. Don't be shy. Ask people. People love to share their advice, which is one of the reasons I love your invitation to talk today, because there have been a lot of lessons learned over the years, and not anything necessarily that I had epiphanies about, but have the luxury of spending time with people that taught me. And it's just nice to be able to pass it along. I think organizations love doers. And the key with that is I look for a few things in people. I look for those who are hungry, because I can't teach it, the fire in the belly that many people talk about, intellectually curious. They are the people that like to figure out how to make things better. They want to understand how a business works, the language of business, and they are thoughtful. They're action-oriented people who really don't mind saying, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'd love to sit down with you for just a few minutes. When you have time, what's the best day? And I oftentimes will make time for those people. They'll come out of the blue. They can be an employee in a store, and it's just nice to know that someone is genuinely interested, and they're not looking for the immediate raise. They're looking for information, which then allows them to get where they want to go. And I'm happy to help them along the way. And even if it doesn't mean they stay with our organization, I tell them all the time, that candor level we establish in the relationship is critical, because if I'm able to help you, ultimately you're going to turn around and say to someone else, that's a great place to work. Mm-hmm. Those people care about you as an individual. But in the meantime, while you're still with us, you then understand why you're doing what you're doing, so you can put pennies in the bank so you can go achieve your dream, and we'll cheer you on to victory. And 50% of the time, people end up staying with us because they realize that it's not necessarily greener, and they can explore their ideas and their desires openly without feeling like we're thinking less of them because they're a flight risk. It's not that way at all. Mm-hmm. So I think that, again, performance trumps tenure, and asking for an opportunity to learn how to make more is not only sensible, it's essential. And those who wait are really fooling themselves. They need to toot their own horn at some point. And, I tell people all the time, at least in our business, for example, at a crew level, you can make donuts, you can decorate donuts, and you can sell donuts. Oftentimes people have one position, but they will wait for someone to notice them instead of saying, hey, how is my product looking? How am I doing? And when can I learn something else so I can add value? Bing, 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 light goes off, and the manager then says, let's sit down. I'll calendar you for some training in this other department. And that's how you proactively go about getting on the agenda. You got to get on someone's agenda on their calendar. Mm-hmm. And that's how you do it. And then once you start learning different skills, you're going to earn more. And once you become what I call a triple threat in our business, you learn all those departments, you then have punched the ticket into the entry-level training program for our management program. Mm-hmm. And it's no different. Once you go up, you learn HR skills, you learn how to negotiate, you learn just business law, etc. And eventually you're ready to take a leap into, cross-departmental or multi-unit type roles.
Interesting. Okay. So typically when somebody approaches their manager, I love that tactful way of saying, when can I learn something else to add value? Is that something that people are asking you too, whenever you're sitting down with employees and they're hoping to kind of like move up the ladder somehow?
Yep. I think some people come at it with a bigger desire. So they'll say, how do I get your job? Mm-hmm. And I said, that's a great question. It's multi-layered and it takes many years. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity is there. Everyone that's smart is looking for someone to take their job. I'm looking and grooming people all the time to take over the next level position and having redundancy throughout the organization. Mm-hmm. That's our lifeblood and our ability to sustain in case someone, God forbid, gets hit by a bus, gets sick, is out for multiple months for whatever reason. And we need to be able to continue without a bump. That's the signal that you have a smooth running machine. And that's the true salute to anybody who runs a store or a shift, is that when you're gone, the place operates as well or better without you. So because of the depth of training you've done for your people. Mm-hmm. So I always tell them, look, focus on building a legacy for yourself, build a reputation. I often tell people, think of yourself, and this is not news, in some book I read at some point, but think of yourself as a business entity. Think of yourself as a brand. And if you think of Gillette, what are they known for? What are the top 3 things that they're known for? Product marketing, et cetera, great packaging and innovation over the years, and how to incrementally price things. What are you known for as an individual? And if you're not sure, ask people around you. Ask the people that have worked with you and ask them to be completely candid with you, good, bad, or ugly. And when you find out, ask them, what are the top 3 words that you think of when you think of me as a business partner? And that will help you see if you have a lack of consistency in how people perceive you. And then you have to start managing that. You have to start managing through your behaviors and your own time. You can manage your own time effectively. There's the old saying in Kobe, we talk a lot about it, which is the Hugh O'Brien Youth Foundation. And it talks about leadership of self, leadership of others, and leadership in community. And it starts with yourself. If you don't have a organized routine in your day to tackle the basics and put yourself in the right frame of mind, you can easily get deluded into thinking that because you've been somewhere long enough, you deserve more money. And that's not the case.
Yeah, you had mentioned that people will come to you and say, I haven't had a raise for a while. And then you will ask them, when was the last raise? What are the other questions? Because I know that I personally did this whenever I was working in the restaurant business. I went to my boss and I said, it's been a really long time and so-and-so is making more money than me and I work harder than she does. And I know now that I probably shouldn't have approached my boss like that, but it was a learning experience. So what would you say to someone that is maybe in the same boat?
I don't think what you said is wrong at all. In fact, I think when people come to me and say that, it tells me that it's an opportunity to help them understand how the business works and how they get perceived. And part of it too is a big word is patience. This happens often where we see people who come in there making more than someone else. And it can be either that they negotiated a better deal. It could be that the market conditions were different when they struck the deal with the company. They may be bringing something to the table that you're not aware of, but people oftentimes will hear a salary or a pay rate and think, oh my gosh, why is that person making so much more money? And I think it's perfectly fine to say to your boss, look, I want to understand what happened here. Are they getting this and I'm not? I think I have more value. Just help educate me. And most of the time I'll tell people, look, you know what? In some cases, you're right. This was a miss on our part. We need to sit down with you. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Other times I tell people, look, give them a year or two. You've got to see how, and if you're not willing to be patient, and I mean, that sounds like a long time for some people. And I tell them, look, you struck a deal with the company and you should be happy with the rate that you struck. If you're not, you have a choice. You can either leave and try to go get more money somewhere else, or you can stay and prove that you can be patient and earn value and create a legacy for yourself that makes it absolutely glaringly clear that we need to pay you more because you are of such value. Meanwhile, the person that was making more money than you will either have performed in a stellar way and impressed you, so you go, now I know why that person was brought in and paid more than me. Or they will be gone.
Right.
And you'll be like, well, the organization really realized that person wasn't that good. So it takes time, but organizations that sometimes are slower to the table than we'd like to be. But this is the value of having regular conversations and understanding the pulse of not only the people that you work for, but the people you work with. And when that is fluid and constant, it's amazing what can happen. It's the stifling part of all these raise issues comes about from a lack of communication, like 99% of the problems in business.
Do you think is it the manager and the employee lack of communication, or do you think it's like a top-down type of communication?
No,
Where do you think it is?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's both ways. I think obviously it has to start from the leadership, the tone and the culture of the company, and fostering that kind of candor. I oftentimes tell people, look, trust is a delicate thing. So to the extent we can avoid having to trust one another is really important. What I prefer to have is a system in place that assures that we have certain things we have to abide by, whether it's our core values that guide us, our systems in the store for cash deposits, et cetera. So there's no finger pointing, but more importantly, that there's enough one-on-one discussions happening regularly that are documented so that I understand where you're coming from and vice versa. And it's clear, and there isn't a lingering curiosity in the person's mind when they're driving home going, boy, I wonder, should I have said this? And, if they're not comfortable picking up the phone and saying, I forgot to ask you this question, that's a problem.
Right.
And there has to be a candor and openness that the managers or people in general who say, I got this, I got it, I don't need any help. Those are the ones I worry about, because the being vulnerable is a critical element of being part of a team. Because when people know you're willing to say, you know what, I don't know how to do this, or I need your help and I can't do this without you.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, the world opens up. People want to help each other. I think that's a natural human tendency. You want to help. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have regular communication and you just aren't fostering those kind of business relationships, it builds what I call these Chinese walls. I mentioned that phrase earlier to you privately, but people can assume that things are happening behind the scenes that aren't even happening, mm-hmm. or they can assume too much that, well, I'm going to have my raise, they're going to notice me. Well, my father told me at one point in time, look, you have to punch your own ticket. Yeah. The conductor may not come by and ask for your ticket on the train. He grew up in the train days, mm-hmm. He said, it's not because the conductor's not a bad person. It's just that they don't have a system. So we all have to have systems, whether you're a manager or you're an employee, that I call them mental islands on the calendar. Mm-hmm. You need to put something out there on a calendar that in 2 months, I'm going to achieve X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to go to my boss and say, hey, not sure you know this, but I did do what we talked about. I followed through. I've learned these skills. And I hope you appreciate the fact I am doing what we talked about. I love that, because I think in the pace we all move, oftentimes those kinds of follow-through actions get missed. But you need to be able to, in a polite way, show people that you set goals for yourself. You followed through on maybe just a passing conversation you have with your boss or someone from outside of the store environment who you happen to talk to, behind the counter, so to speak. But when people know you really do listen and do follow through, it makes a huge impact. They remember, I remember that person at that store. Wow, they're an up and comer. And it's just little things like that kind of, you drop in a pebble and eventually people remember. And if they see that over time, that you're consistently fostering, managing up and sideways, they see you as a collaborative spirit versus someone who's just out for themselves.
I could see that. I really like that punch your own ticket. So do you feel like people have to do this in like a tactful way? Like you're not bragging, or are you bragging? How are you approaching these conversations?
I think it's one of the other things we look for is humility, right? Mm-hmm. So boastfulness is really unattractive. Mm-hmm. What I think is very attractive is someone who's self-assured, someone who knows that I have learned. We talk oftentimes in terms of knowledge, will, and ability. The organization's responsibility is to give you the knowledge, but ultimately it's up to the individual to demonstrate through their own behaviors that they have the will and the ability to do a particular job. Some people burn out and they lose the will. They're very good, but they've lost it. The organization has to ask itself, what have we not done so this person's willpower is still strong? Mm-hmm. That's one question. The other side of it could be that this person has a lot of desire and a lot of passion, but they're just not suited for this role. Maybe they're not a front counter retail salesperson, but can be very effective somewhere else. Maybe even in the organization. Maybe they would be excellent in accounting, helping out because they're very detail oriented, mm-hmm. but don't want to deal with the customers that much. And so as you learn who you are, you have to be self-aware and be able to articulate that to whoever you're working for or with and say, look, I'm more of this kind of person and I'm passionate about this. How can I lever that tendency and my skill set? And that just opens up floodgates of information, because oftentimes I love for people to grow up in the field and run businesses really well. And all of a sudden they're 25 years old and they're running a $2-3 million business. Mm-hmm. And I say, pretty amazing, right? So if you want to grow your skill sets and manage more through people across other units, let's talk about that. But maybe that may or may not interest you. Maybe you'd be more interested in moving to our support center and helping in some sort of an administrative support way. Because some people are really, they want to learn marketing. They want a Monday through Friday job versus a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour restaurant crazy kind of world, which I love. Mm-hmm. So everybody has to know what kind of life they want, and ask for that. I've said this before, but I think it's finding out what you don't want to do is 90% of the battle. Mm-hmm. So you've got to expose yourself to different things. That's not to say job hopping's ideal, right? Because you can get exposed to different pursuits within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
The best people who I see that have just that curiosity we talked about earlier, or that hunger, I'll say, have you ever thought about coming to the office for a day and spend a day in accounts receivable?
Mm.
Because it may be that they don't have an appreciation for how difficult that job is, and then they go there and they realize, my job is not as hard as I thought it was. I like what I'm doing.
Right, they're doing a lot over there.
They're doing a lot, and they have a lot of pressures and it just keeps coming. The bills keep coming in,
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more we actually cross-pollinate that way, people get exposed. B, they start to learn what they really do and do not like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they also build a healthy respect for what other people do in an organization. A lot of people want to go out and be an entrepreneur and make a lot of money and all this thing. It's the starry-eyed child kind of syndrome, right? At the end of the day, if you've ever been an entrepreneur and been out on your own like I have, you understand the value of being part of a bigger organization. You have a healthy respect for each of the roles in the organization, and you understand the value they add and how much time they can free up for you. So you're not having to do the payroll, or you're not having to do the X, Y, and Z and deal with the workers' compensation, all these types of issues.
Yeah.
So I think it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. And for anybody who's trying to manage up in their career, you need to look at who they are naturally, and then make sure that over time they expose themselves to people who balance them. So if you're naturally a energizer bunny, I call them that, they're just go, 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 rah, 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 cheerleader mentality.
I know someone like that.
I do too, just like Quirk of Fate. And or they can be the what I'd call the organized taskmaster, and that doesn't mean that it's in a bad way. It means that they get things done. They're rigorous. They're detail oriented. They're a driver, but they're not the person that always should be conducting the HR discussions. They're the kind of person that you need someone else who has the softer side of Sears' approach to be able to navigate artfully difficult situations in a way that makes both parties feel heard. And oftentimes, some people will just talk over others. They may not be a great listener or an active listener. And so you have to figure out, who are you? Are you not a good listener? How do you get better at it?
Right.
And who do I need to go spend time with so I can learn how to be better? You'll pick up things. I think one of your other interviewees mentioned this idea, which is that you're putting little stones in a wall, even though you don't realize it throughout your career. And you'll do things, reach out and do some fun, different things, because you'll be amazed at how they end up benefiting you in the long run. From my own experience, I remember taking an improv class in Hollywood years ago.
Nice.
When I graduated college and had 3 different jobs to try to make ends meet. One was selling shoes, one was doing the books for a talent agency, and the other was waiting tables down in Malibu. And it just by chance happened to hear about this class. So I said, yeah, what the heck? I'm going to go try this. Best thing I did at that age. In retrospect, I didn't realize it until 20 years later, but it got me comfortable talking to audiences and being comfortable with silence and acknowledging the value that someone else brings to the table. Little things that you just don't realize when you're a simple improv class. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, not me. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So did you do it for public speaking, or did you do it just because it sounded like cool and fun?
I was a mixture of both. I was trying to realize or get out of being shy, if you will, which was natural. I wasn't an introvert by any stretch, but by the same token, I admired people who could get up and just improvise and talk extemporaneously about any topic and just kind of go with it and be engaging. To me, that was something that I didn't think I was, and I want to learn how to do it. I don't know that I've ever gotten there, but I am constantly trying to learn how to connect with people.
Yeah. No, I think you do a great job. If I say
You
so
too.
myself. So I have one question. How does someone go from, did you say selling shoes or working on shoes? I was selling shoes at the Broadway, Fox Hills Mall. Working in a restaurant and doing the books for a talent agency. How does someone go from those things to the president of a company?
Sure. Well, again, I tried some things that I didn't have, the best luck with falling into the right situation where I had either the great mentor at my feet or upon graduation from college. And I also had a little bit of a wild hair, I think, admittedly, at that time in life. And I wanted to try a few new things.
Uh-huh.
But I quickly realized doing 3 jobs and working those crazy hours that that was not a sensible life. And so I ended up falling back on a role with Atlantic Richfield Oil Company in downtown Los Angeles and working in the Interstate Taxation Department for legal affairs.
Wow.
Yeah, go figure that out.
Sounds
right?
fancy.
But it was I wanted to find a company that had a wildcat kind of mentality, and the oil business does have that. And but they're also a huge business, and they were very diversified. And I just happened to fall into that through a friend. I said, look, where would you go? And they recommended this, and it turned out to be fantastic because the big company had a immediate street credibility when I ended up talking to people. And just by fate, and this is really what set me on the path to be in the restaurant business, I'll be as brief as I can. I happened to go to a sponsored function that ARCO had, and it was Henry Kissinger was speaking. Uh-huh. And I happened to sit in this room, and right next to me, an older gentleman sat down. He said, what do you do? And I told him, I'm working in the Interstate Taxation Department. And he said, how are you liking it? And I said, I'm bored.
I'm bored.
I like the work, but it's repetitive, and it's not what I thought it was going to be. And he said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I'm not sure yet, but I'm trying to turn over the stones and figure out where to go. And I think I would be good in marketing and in maybe asset management, something along those lines. And he said, well, I happen to be the head of real estate for Atlantic Richfield. And yeah, again, quirk of fate.
Wow.
But we got into just kind of conversation. He said, I really like it, but I can't hire you. You can't get in my department because you don't have an MBA. Mm-hmm. And he said, but if you go get one, I'd love to talk to you. And I said, well, I will go get one. But in the meantime, is there some people you might introduce me to so I get exposed to the different avenues within the real estate world? Because I know a little bit about marketing and a little bit, And so he did. He helped introduce me to people all through Los Angeles. And I was able to get meetings with people I would never have been able to get meetings with, purely because it was an exploratory discussion that he had arranged. And that was a great lesson for me, is you can help introduce people. It's up to them to make their way. And it was a great example of leadership. I mean, I think about him often. Ben Kubler is his name, God rest him. But he was a great man because he helped someone. He listened. He listened. And I've always remembered that. But through that, I ended up working for a brokerage company in Orange County that ended up getting acquired by a bank and got acquired by Bank of America, and they decided to divest. But meantime, I had developed relationships with the University of California, Irvine, and ended up working for them in real estate while going and getting my MBA.
Nice. And
got exposed to different restaurateurs who were looking for space. And I was helping them secure restaurants in Pasadena, et cetera. That is the pivotal moment when I realized I like the restaurant business. I'm seeing these people who are the chefs, owners, and they're wearing multiple hats. It's exciting. And I ended up working for Pizza Hut, doing consulting work in real estate, and eventually leveraging that to work with Taco Bell and then to Krispy Kreme and onward and onward. But I had graduated with an MBA and decided I'm going to learn this business from the ground up. And I took a job as an assistant manager with Taco Bell.
Wow.
With an MBA. Yep.
Just in a store, like managing people.
Back down. And
slinging tacos.
It was really interesting because they said, where do you want to live? I said, North Carolina.
Oh.
Looked at me. I was living in Irvine at the time. Said, why North Carolina? And I said, well, for me, it's going to be near the beaches. It's going to be near the mountains. I can fish. I can go horseback riding. I can do all the things I love doing. And they said, okay, sure. So they hooked me up with some people in North Carolina, and they ended up getting sold off to a franchisee. But that was also the benefit of working for the company and then seeing the franchise world. And so that's where my career really diverged. And, I had a choice either to stay with the company and hunker down and feel safe and go back to Irvine, or stay and go with the unknown in North Carolina with a new company that bought us out. And I decided to go with the unknown because I was happy where I was living and I liked it. By hook or by crook, I ended up coming back west because that's where the base of my knowledge was, which is another thing for people to realize is, where you choose to go to work and who you go to work for can oftentimes help determine the trajectory or the ultimate location you end up getting based in. The higher up you go, the more flexibility you probably gain in being able to take, jobs in different locales, but you also have more freedom, I think, financially just to make those choices. So to the extent that you just are self-aware, where you want to go, the types of environments where you'd be happy, and you are thoughtful about it. It's not that you fall forward gracefully. You have to have a plan. You have to say, look, these are the things I like doing. This is what I'm good at. I call it talent. Some people fight the trend or fight the current. They go, I have to learn those things that are hard for me. And I say, no, be aware of them. Yes, learn enough to be, okay at it.
Mm-hmm.
But go with what comes easily to you. That's called talent. Because when you build on that, you'll be better than anybody else because they'll want what you know. Just go with that. Lever your talents.
Yeah. And so don't really focus like on your weaknesses and try to build those. Figure out what you're good at and what you like and where you want to be and what company you want to work for.
Yeah. I mean, you may not be an accountant by trade, but for gosh sake, take an intro course to accounting so you understand the language of business and the basic outline of a P&L.
Right.
Because until then, you don't have an appreciation for the pillars of the business, and you can't really talk artfully to anybody who is in a senior decision-making capacity. And this goes to raises too. Companies have to be profitable in order to have the excess funds left over to do things like raises. So if you're focusing on when to approach bosses, it really is being aware of the cycle in business. I always tell people, are you a farmer or not? Farmers are aware of, what to plant, where to plant it, when to plant it, and when to harvest. And sometimes, you want to harvest that raise now, but it's the wrong time. The season is not right. The company is not in a good position. The sun is not shining and it's raining like cats and dogs. And if you're in the middle of the storm asking for something, it's not going to happen. So save your bullets and wait until the right moment when the company's had a good financial period and you've achieved some new goals. Constantly be doing that through thick and thin. And that disciplined approach and loyalty really matters.
I love that. Okay, so sowing the seeds and timing. Be a good farmer. So. That's great. That is so good. And this is so good. And I have to start to close, unfortunately, which is such a bummer because there's so much that has been amazing. So I do want to ask you though, is there anything else that you want to add to this conversation about how people can, get a raise and feel like they're valued in their companies?
I think we've covered so much. The investing in yourself, I think, is critical along the way. Taking, if somebody's interested in looking up Darren Hardy, he has a great podcast as well, just about general life and leadership. But oftentimes it takes about, 5% of whatever he earns and invests in himself every year. And you think about that, it can be a lot of money. Now, for anybody, think about what 5% of your income would be. It's a lot of money probably for anybody at any phase of life. But if you're not reinvesting in yourself, I don't know how you add value because whether you are reading books or you're going to a seminar or you are paying for lunch to sit down with a recruiter who you've never met, be willing to step forward and invest in yourself because, again, you are your own business entity. If you're going to create a brand reputation, you have to have more value over time. So getting your network established and surrounding yourself with some key people along the way is going to be critical as well. And that includes just the basics of, knowing a good tax accountant, knowing a good attorney. These are many things that people wait to do until when they have a crisis moment. And you don't have to. Life can be a lot more organized and you can navigate things a lot more artfully if you have those people and those relationships already established when the storm hits. And so I think that that's probably life advice, but also career advice. It really helps.
Yeah. And that brand reputation, you've mentioned that a couple times. I've never thought about that as like creating your own brand almost within your organization and as an employee. Do you see that a lot of people will do that?
I don't know how many do it. I know we talk about it, and much like I had mentioned earlier, dropping pebbles. Advice is really only worth what someone's willing to take and put action into. So I've learned, the truisms are truisms for a reason. They've proven themselves over time. So those simple sayings, really, you have to listen to those. The old Ben Franklin kind of stuff. It just. But what do you do in your own life to bring those to life? That's the question. So it's a matter of dropping pennies along the way, helping others. It's a huge thing. If you're helping others along the way, ultimately you are going to succeed. Because if you're a good developer of people, you become the lifeblood of an organization. If you create a reputation for yourself of being someone who's humble and smart and funny. It's one of the things I remember I love. There's some rules you asked, one of the things I guess I could close with, and there's a list of some rules I just made for this discussion today. So here they go. Here you go.
Yep, I want to hear them.
So here's some rules I've learned to live by.
Okay.
Never say yes immediately in negotiations or otherwise. Assume they need you more than you need them. It's a good mindset, but remain humble. Being boastful is unattractive. We talked about that earlier. Get things in writing. Emails work fine. For example, I was able to get a monthly car wash allowance. Just something small. Yeah, just a small perk. But those are the kind of things you can get if you really want it, and you're going to be asked to be out and showing people around or taking people out for whatever reason.
Right.
And you want to have a good appearance.
And you said get those in writing. Like,
get them in writing.
Did you get an email that said
I just said, hey,
get a car wash.
Oftentimes you recapitulate a conversation you have with someone. So if you talk with the boss about, hey, as you said, as we discussed, looking forward to getting that monthly car allowance is planned. When can it start? And then you just get the yes, it'll start on May 1st or whatever date it is. And there you go. And then if it doesn't happen 2 months later, don't worry about it. Just send that note to payroll and say, hey, I'm not sure you really got the memo. Here it is. And copy the person who promised it. They won't feel badly either. They'll actually feel bad that it didn't happen. So, I think the other thing is make the business case. Learn the language of business, like we talked about. Learn how to put forward a return on investment case study. If you're going to send me to this seminar, this is what I think you'll get out of it. I will commit to generating X amount of dollars. But being able to show people that you're thinking that way from the beginning is really important. Especially if you're talking about even a 20 cent an hour raise. If you give me that raise, I'll deliver this. People oftentimes, I'll promote someone for what I know they can do versus what I hope they can do. So I need someone to show me that they have the willingness to do the job even before they get paid for it. And when I see that, sometimes I'll give them an even bigger raise than they expect.
Oh, nice.
I'd say know what you stand for, like we talked about, being the business entity. Be willing to be vulnerable. We talked about that. This is another one, is be brief. Brevity has real value in this world, especially as things are going fast and furious and people are trying to get through agendas during the day. And some people just go on and on and on. And for me, it can be a red flag because they can become the distractor in the organization, just constantly peering over the cubicle and interrupting other people with stories that have maybe not even a point. So you just have to be aware of those people. Exactly. Okay, what about, right?
Yeah,
let's get to that point. I think people who talk about themselves all the time is astounding. I always listen to see, are they asking about what someone else is going through or trying to tell people what they did over the weekend? The people who are interested in what's going on with other people, that typically tells me they're externally focused, which is a really big value for me. I like those kind of people. I also think Ben Zander is a great symphony conductor. He gave a great TED Talk I think many people have watched over the years, but he has this great one where he talks about rule number 6. And by the way, there are no other rules. It's just rule number 6.
Nice. I've never watched that one.
Which he says is, don't take yourself so damn seriously.
Yes.
There are people that, when something happens, they're the hair on fire people. They're running down the hallway. Oh my God. And to me, that just signals you're out of control and you're letting little things get to you. And instead, I'd rather you be the person who's the center of the hurricane. And there's things whirling around you and you're going, okay, I see where that's going. That's going to be fine. That's not going to hurt me. You need people that can have that self-awareness and instill confidence and calm in others versus the person who's just constantly being alarmist about things.
And gossiping. So, I know people.
Absolutely. There's enough drama out there. There's enough drama out there.
We don't need all of that. Okay, so where can people find you, Kurt, if they want to connect or anything like that?
Yeah. LinkedIn can be good, but I typically have what I call a semi-closed network. So if I've actually done business with people, or I know someone in my network who has done business with them successfully, then I will admit them to the network. And I found that to be very valuable for me because there are a lot of business development people, God bless them, they've got a tough job, but they're trying to get new business, probably 10, 15 emails a day wanting to join. And it really, a network is only what it's worth. I mean, if And I understand people wanting to get access to your network. That I get.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure that when they get access, they're responsible about it,
Mm-hmm.
and that they are really a master of whatever their trade happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel confident recommending them. So as much as I'd like to say, yeah, contact me on LinkedIn, I might not be able to do much.
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is email me at my private email address. I'll just give it to you. It's
nice.
Kurt.Kuyper, so that's Kurt.Kuyper, Kuyper, @gmail.com. And I'd be happy to try to get back in touch with you.
Nice. Answer any questions. You've been so good, Kurt.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, you've brought a ton of value, and I know that people are really going to be excited about this episode. I'm excited. I learned a ton. I'm totally honest. And I feel like I need to take an improv class now.
It's a lot of fun. It's a form of group therapy I think everybody should go through.
Really? That's awesome. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. And thank you again so much.
A pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And we thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. And we'd also love it if you'd leave us a comment. A 5-star comment would be fantastic. But I'm going to sign off for now. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Raise Up podcast. Bye.